Hi everybody, Mayor Pierre Leroux here. Bonjour tout le monde, Mayor Pierre Leroux ici en direct to discuss the 2019 budget. So for those who are going to watch live or are going to watch after the fact, there's a link in the post to a presentation I'm going to be referencing this evening. Alors, il va y avoir de l'information incluant dans le post qui parle du budget 2019. Alors, je voulais juste vous laisser savoir, puis vous pouvez regarder ça aussi. So essentially, budget 2019 for the municipality. So we're going to discuss how a budget actually works, some statistics on our municipal taxes, and then we're going to go into a summary of the 2019 budget. We're going to speak about operational budget and our infrastructure budget. So I guess the first question is how does a budget actually work? So a balanced budget. So compared to provincial and federal budgets, they are allowed to run deficits. You hear the term deficits all the time in debt. There's actually a difference. A debt is if the township were, for example, to take out a loan on a bridge repair, that would be considered a debt. A deficit is essentially the difference between your revenues and your expenses. So if you have $1 million coming in and you're spending $2 million, well, that $1 million difference, that would actually be called a deficit. You hear about deficits at the provincial level and the federal level all the time. Au niveau municipal, at the municipal level, we are not allowed to budget for a deficit. We actually have to balance our budget, which means that the revenues that come in have to match the expenses that we have going out. So some statistics on taxes. So essentially, I'll show a little graph here. Every year, the value of 1%, la valeur de 1%, augmente. So we often, one of the questions I like to ask residents when we're talking about taxes is, if we were to raise taxes 1% in the municipality, how much does that actually generate revenue for the township? So I've heard some crazy numbers out there, but the reality is that 1% in 2019 is roughly equivalent to $115,000. So here's a little chart of what's happened in the last 3-4 years. But if somebody says, raise taxes, we want to build a complex, sports complex, for example. We've been talking about sports complex for years. It's a $30 to $50 million project. Well, 1% represents $115,000. So you can understand that it's not as easy as just flicking a switch and getting the project done. There has to be a lot of investigation into how we actually finance a project of that size. The other page 6 of the report that's on the website is a history of the tax levy. So this essentially shows in 2019, we're talking about how much of a tax increase 2% represents, which is what we approved for the 2019 budget, which is a 2% increase, which is roughly $230,000. And then we also have a assessment growth portion, which is $380,000. So when we talk about assessment growth, we're talking about new properties, new homes, new commercial development that come into the township. We're also talking about on your impact assessment, year after year, if your year one is your house is worth $200,000 and the year 2 it's evaluated at $225,000, well, that $25,000 is actually part of the growth component. So that's a little bit of information there. For those who are just joining us, you can ask your questions, post them on the live stream. I'll be addressing all the questions answered at the end. Pour ceux qui viennent juste de rentrer, tu peux poser tes questions, puis m'adresser toutes les questions vers la fin du webcast pour essayer d'avoir que je veux pas qu'on répète tout le temps la même question si ça l'arrive. Local municipal levy history. So just to give an idea of how much money we have coming in from taxation. So in 2019, we have roughly $11.7 million, 11,7 millions qui rentrent à travers la taxation pour le canton, la municipalité de Russell. And this slide here, which is on slide 8, is a history of tax increases versus tax rate increases. So essentially what this shows is that since 2016, our taxes have gone up roughly 1.5%, and then for 2019 it's going up 2%, but we have what we call revenue neutral, which is essentially if your house is worth $200,000 and we say we're increasing 2%, it's actually 2%. So if the tax rate has to go down so that the growth component I was speaking is not affected. It's actually the 2% on what you have. So for example, 2016, that went down 3%, 0.56, 1.3, and goes down 0.8 this year, so that you really see on your tax bill when we say 2%, it's actually 2% increase on the municipal portion. We'll get to that a little bit later because there is a difference between the municipal portion, your school board taxes, and the county level taxation. So what does 2% increase actually mean for the average home in Russell Township? So a municipal tax increase of 2%, the average household is roughly $330,000 in assessment value in Russell Township. So you'll roughly see an increase of $32 in 2019, which is roughly, a large coffee a month or a couple of coffees a month. That's the reality. As I said, 1% is roughly $115,000. We're actually getting $230,000 out of this, so it's not a huge revenue generation for the township in this case. One chart that I love to see is the Prescott-Russell residential tax rates. So this chart, which is on page 10 of the link, essentially lists the 8 municipalities in all of Prescott-Russell, and it shows that what the taxes are per $100,000. So per $100,000, Russell Township is actually the second lowest in all of the United Counties. For $100,000 of value, we're paying $498 in taxation, whereas you have a municipality that's over $1,000, over double the amount of taxes in the United Counties. So we're doing a very good job. We were actually at third in 2013, and we've actually caught up to second place, and we're $7 difference between the first place and the seventh place. So we're actually in a very good position. The cheapest right now is East Hawkesbury, and I'm glad to say that we're catching up. Now that being said, obviously the value of a property here in Russell Township tends to be higher because of the proximity to Ottawa versus municipalities which are further east of the United Counties. So this on page 11 just demonstrates the average assessments and municipal taxes in Prescott-Russell. So as you can see, we actually are ranked the first highest as far as property values. The average property here in Russell Township is $328,000, followed by Clarence Rockland at $293,000, and so on. But even then, if you put the municipal taxes, the levy with the average assessment, we're still ranked number 4th for $1,636 for municipal taxes on the average household compared to the other ones. So it's really nice to see how we compare with other neighboring municipalities, because ça nous permet de voir comment la taxation est affectée puis comment la croissance est importante dans notre municipalité. So we'll move on to the next item, which is item 12, which is how municipal taxes are divided. So we all know that when you have municipal taxes, ton bill de taxe, il est payé à chaque année, is paid to the township. We are in charge of collecting your taxes. However, we don't get to keep all that money. We actually have to give a portion to the school boards, and we also have to give a portion to the United Counties. So the United Counties, they're responsible for social services ambulance services, the Prescott Russell residents, those kinds of programs. Whereas at the municipal level, we have different programs, water, sewer, garbage collection, roads, that kind of stuff. So here in 2018, we saw that for every dollar collected, essentially 44 cents went to the municipality, whereas 35 cents went to the United Counties and 20 cents went to the school board. So we're roughly collecting 44%. On collecte essentiellement 44% de l'argent collecté des taxes que nous autres, faut qu'on travaille avec, that we have to work with, because that's our share of those funds. So a little bit of history on the operational and infrastructure budget of history. So on page 13, we see that for 2019, we're looking at an operational budget of roughly $26 million. We're discussing a infrastructure budget of $28 million and a total budget of $54 million. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I threw a number out there of how much we're collecting in taxes, but there's also other fees. When we take into account water and sewer user charges, we also see user charges at our facilities, and we also see grants are another possible way of getting funding. So some of these, while it seems like great numbers, one of the main projects we're talking about is roughly a $20 million project to service the industrial park with water and sewer. That's only going ahead. We put it in our budget in case we decide to go ahead this year, but that's a project that would mostly be paid by landowners in that area, and that's why we work hard as well for getting grant money to help pay for these costs. But we do include it in our budget in case we do go ahead this year. So now a little bit about the infrastructure budget. So the infrastructure budget is, I'll take a step back. The two basic budgets are operational and infrastructure. Operational is, what do we need to run the day-to-day business of the corporation? That's the operational budget. Salaries, maintenance of equipment, that kind of stuff. Infrastructure budget is usually a budget that you see the benefit over multiple years. We're going to pave a road. That lasts for multiple years. We're going to fix a bridge. The bridge has an impact over multiple years. So it's really dividing those two and understanding what we need for our day-to-day operations and what capital projects or infrastructure projects we want to do. So this year, we're roughly paving for $1.5 million is going towards the paving of roads. And we're talking about roughly about 6 kilometers of paving, and there's about 8 kilometers of surface treatment. So as you can imagine, we're talking about 14 kilometers. It's roughly $100,000 a kilometer. We have over 250 kilometers in the municipality, so obviously it's a little tricky to get everything done at once. That's why year after year we have to evaluate our roads and determine how are we going to pave those. And the infrastructure department usually brings us a report that says, based on certain criteria established by the provincial government, how often the road is used, the quality, all sorts. There's like 30 different criteria, and they give us which roads are suggested, and we debate that at budget time, whether we want to go with those roads or other roads. In our infrastructure budget, we have a land purchase in the industrial park at the 417. For those who do not know, pour ceux qui ne sachent pas, we're selling land in the industrial park like crazy. It's going really well. We see a lot of businesses, new businesses going up in our 417 industrial park. Il y a beaucoup de croissance. Puis c'est un gros bénéfice à la municipalité quand on a la croissance commerciale industrielle parce qu'ils payent des taxes plus chères qui aident à réduire la pression sur le côté résidentiel. So commercial growth, industrial growth is a great thing for the township because it helps ease the pressure on the residential side. We have an infrastructure project. We have a town hall roof replacement for $55,000. Need some, the building is getting older. Obviously, we have to maintain it, so we do some work there as well. And then I mentioned earlier the water and sewer services in the industrial park. So we're looking at that possibility as well. A couple new financial strategies that we've put in place for the township. We've created something that's called the Energy Fund. Essentially what it is, it's taking the profits from a project and reinvesting in something to help get a return on our investment. I guess the easiest project to talk about is the LED street lights that were changed in the township. So by investing some funds in that program, we created, we're more efficient, which means that it's costing a lot less hydro costs, which means we're saving money, and those savings are going towards a fund that will do other projects. We've done the arena street light, the arena lights as well. So that's another way to generate more revenues. So we're actually looking at having our money work for us, which is proper business. The other fund that we've looked at creating is a financial strategy is a recreational complex financing. So essentially what council has done this year is that we're putting aside, we've created a fund where we put $150,000 a year aside towards the creation of a future sports complex. This is something that we've been talking for years and years and years, and if we would have started putting funds aside 30 years ago, we'd have enough money to do it today, but that's not the case. So we have to start putting funds aside. So we've decided to put $150,000 a year aside. So we'll put $150 this year. We'll add to that fund another 50, which means there'll be 300 the year after, 450, and so on, so that we can start building a good base to help pay for a future recreational complex. That's pretty much the slideshow that was posted on the link. I'm not sure if we have some questions coming in regards. We do have a question, so I'll address where we can. Sur Sainte-Marie, en direction de la 417, il y a une intersection qui a des stop signs, mais pas de l'essence vers ou venant de là, autre la 417. Allez-vous n'ajouter un autre stop? Not really in regards to the budget, but fair enough. It's we're talking about stop signs on Sainte-Marie. I'm not exactly sure which intersection he's referring to, because we did add stops at Sainte-Marie and Route 400 a little while ago, a few months ago at least. And that seems to have helped with a lot of near misses. We had some congestion problems there. Not congestion, but we had some accident possibilities there, and we did the same thing at Route 400 and in Russell. So that is essentially what we were doing. They're actually county roads, so that's at the county level. But we always look at how can we improve traffic. It's something we take considerably, especially with the amount of growth we're seeing. It's very, we have a traffic master plan, and that's something, same thing with, there was a question in regards to cycling. We have a cycling master plan as well. That's actually going to be coming up for public consultation very shortly. Those interested in cycling in the municipality, I suggest that you keep your eye open for that one. Pour le plan de cyclisme, parce que c'est très très important. Une des questions, est-ce qu'on va élargir une certaine rue? À ce point-ci, c'est pas dans le budget. At this point in time, there was a question in regards to, are we going to widen one of the roads to make it cycling friendly? At this point in time, it's not in the budget this year, but keep your eye out for the cycling plan, and we'll be looking for public feedback at that point in time. Just to let you know how our public session this year was the time schedule was a little off because of the election period last year, the municipal election. But normally how it works, roughly in the month of September, it'll start off that we'll have a public consultation. It'll be a meeting of council where members of the public are invited to ask questions, or not ask questions, but to make suggestions as to what they would like to see in the future budget. At that point in time, the staff are working on the budget. They make a first draft, which is presented to council. Sometimes some of the requests are actually part of the administration's plans, are included in operational or infrastructure budgets. Sometimes they're not. At the end of the day, though, a budget is not rocket science. Essentially, when people ask for stuff or when council members would like to see things included in the budget, we have two choices. If somebody's asking for something that's, for example, it's $65,000 or $60,000, roughly 1%, half a percent of the budget. Council has a choice. Do we raise taxes to cover that cost, or do we cut somewhere else into another service or another department to cover the difference? That's really what it comes down to, guys. When something is to be added to the township, it is where's the funds coming from? And we either go through taxation or we become more stringent in the current budget and see where we can find efficiencies or where staff or where council would like to cut. I want to take a moment just to talk about asset management because asset management is very important for a municipality. And I'll throw some numbers out here, and just to clarify, almost all municipalities are in the same boat when it comes to asset management. If we wanted to provide the same level of service today in 20 years' time, nothing new, just exactly the same services, we have roughly a $2 million shortfall in our asset management plan, which means we would have to increase our funds, by our revenues by $2 million just to keep the same level of service in 20 years' time. Obviously, nobody wants to see a roughly 20% hike in their budget. So council has to make very informed decisions how we move forward. That's not accounting for grants and all that kind of stuff. But it's very important when we have discussions about bringing new things in. For example, we want to build an extra kilometer of sidewalks. My question is, okay, that has a cost, an initial cost, but we know we'll have to replace that infrastructure at the end of its life in, say, 20, 25 years. We have to snow plow that, salt it for the next 20, 25 years. So sometimes it's not just the one-time initial cost, but it's how much is it going to cost long-term and what's the impact long-term. As we deliver new services, we got to remember that we have to pay for those services moving forward as well. So that's something asset management is very key for a municipality. How we move forward, the decisions we make obviously have a long-term impact. So that's why I feel that as a council, we have to be able to, and as a municipality, we have to have those honest discussions on what services are essential, which ones do we need, which ones do we want to modify going forward. And, some services make money, some services lose money. And that's a necessity because it's not always about making money, it's about providing a service. And what level of service that we want to provide that is very, very important. Alors, c'est très important quand on parle des assets parce que on veut faire certain qu'on a des fonds pour couvrir toutes ces dépenses-là dans le futur. That's why as well commercial growth is very, very important because commercial growth, there was a report that came out a few years ago and I just remember some of the numbers, and it said essentially what happens is that for every dollar of residential taxes received, it actually costs the municipality $1.08 to provide those services. So we're actually losing money with residential growth. The catch-22 is that the commercial side of things, where we actually make money, where for every dollar we collect from commercial taxes, it's only roughly 50 cents cost. We're actually making money with commercial taxes. The problem is a lot of commercial don't want to come unless there's a residential base to support them. So as we see a lot more residential coming, we're starting to see the commercial growth, the industrial growth. Just as we heard the announcement this week of an A&W, a new gas station, this is just the beginning. The municipality has essentially set the table. We've put infrastructures in place. We've put our zoning plan in place. We've put our official plan in place. So the table is all set. Now we're waiting for everybody to come in. So we're actually in a very, very good position as far as the municipality goes. I'm not sure if we have more questions that have come in. We haven't had more questions come in at this point in time. It's 7:25. It's been my pleasure to speak with you guys. Il est 7h25. On n'a pas d'autres questions qui arrivent à ce point-ci. Je pense que j'ai eu un plaisir de faire cette vidéo en direct. C'est tout le temps important de discuter du budget, comment ça nous implique. Je vous invite, vous auriez l'opportunité de, si vous regardez archivé, if you're watching the webcast after it was actually live, you can still ask questions. I'll keep an eye out for the next few days. Staff will keep an eye out, and when questions come in as on the post, I'll be able, or staff will be able to chime in and send you a message. Obviously, my web page, or not my web page, but my Facebook page is always available. You guys can reach me through there, through Messenger. You can send me a message on Twitter. My email is pierreleroux@russell.ca. Mon courriel, c'est pierreleroux@russell.ca. Feel free, guys. Send me questions anytime. I'm more than willing. That's my job, to talk with residents and try and improve our township. That's why we're here. So we actually have a question coming in. In the budget, is there money marked for sidewalks from Broadway to Old Town in Russell? Can you confirm where exactly the sidewalk will be installed on Craig or Gaslight? Thanks, Joey, very much for the question. There's no specific for that project, but I do know that the infrastructure department is talking with the owners at that property, Home Hardware, Foodland, all that area. They're talking with them, and it's also a county road, so there's discussions with the county as well. So there are talks to link Broadway and Old Town in the future. So it's in the budget, there are funds for sidewalks. I'm not sure if it's specifically for that area. I have some staff, so I'm just touching base.
So we do have.
Yeah, so there is funding in this year's budget to get a sidewalk from Broadway to Old Town West. Thanks very much for the question. I think that's it. Guys, like I said, send me an email, call my office, call my cell, reach out anytime. I'm always willing to talk. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Je pense que comme j'ai dit tantôt, c'est un plaisir. Si vous avez des questions, envoyez-moi un courriel. Appelez-moi, viens à l'hôtel de ville, vous êtes capable de me rejoindre, c'est certain. Alors, thanks very much, everybody. I look forward to having future discussions and doing future webcasts and live webcasts and chat in the future. Merci beaucoup. Salut tout le monde.